Hello and welcome to Ecosystems, Payments and Killer Apps, how the rise of mobile is dominating financial innovation. This is a Finextra webcast sponsored by Misys. And joining me today is Michael Nusiforo, very good, who's a consultant in the mobile space and is also former head of mobile at RBS. Next to him is John Conlon, who's head of proposition and partner development for digital payments at Barclaycard. And of course, we'll be talking about Pingit later on. Next to me is Alex Bray, who's Channel Solutions Director at Misys. And last but not least, we have Casper Olsen, who's Senior Financial Infrastructure Manager at Danske Bank. Very good. Now, something Michael said to me before the webcast, where he said, where did you get interested in mobile? And I just think if you are in the banking industry over the past 18 months, it's kind of hard not to be interested in mobile. So, I think we'll have a pretty lively conversation. But I wanted to start off with this idea that I think comes up on everyone's lips when they talk about mobile, is this idea of the ecosystem. Because no bank has sort of launched a mobile app by themselves. They have to work with a telco or a startup developer, and so there's a whole partnership program that everyone has to look at. So I wanted to maybe start with you, since you guys have an app out. So in this idea of the mobile ecosystem, who owns the customer?
Oh, good starting point. Well, I think it's probably wrong to think of someone owning the customer. I think the ecosystem is crucial and is really interesting, because for it to work, you need retailers to want to do it, you need mobile operators to want to be involved, you need mobile manufacturers to invest in the technology, you need banks, you need schemes. So there are so many different aspects who have all got a vested interest, and it's got to work for each one of those. So to say one of those own the customer would really be unfair. But also, if you think about it from the customer's perspective, the customer interacts with services in many different ways. So I'm a customer of Facebook, I'm a customer of British Gas, I'm a customer of Royal Mail, I'm a customer of so many different parts. I don't think one of those own me. So I don't think anyone owns that customer. But when you're in the service from the operator or from the bank or with the retailer, it's really important that they own that experience. So the experience, as opposed to ownership of customer, is really how we'd look to define it.
That's an interesting point. We always think of who owns the customer from the bank side, but what does the customer think? How are they owned?
Actually, I agree with John there. I think if you think from the customer's perspective, that the closest someone does come to owning the experience is probably a bank. So front of mind when you're going to make a payment or a purchase is always the bank. You're going to get your bank card out at the point of sale, or you're going to check your account balance through your banking app. I do think, however, that banks haven't leveraged that semi-ownership of the customer enough yet, and it's probably most of that is actually self-inflicted, because traditionally they've sort of thought of themselves as taking deposits and lending, and only now they're starting to see beyond that scope of what we can do to facilitate the customer experience.
So Casper, you just spent this week with the Mobi Forum in Belfast. Are they still talking about this idea of ecosystem and who owns the customer, or have they moved beyond it?
Well, we still talk a lot about who owns the customer, and should there be, for instance, one wallet or two wallets or 5 wallets on your phone, or only just one unified multi-wallet, because there's a lot of perception that whoever owns the wallet owns the customer. And that's why we see some they try to brand their wallets and using a banking logo. But I think actually, as you said before, it depends much on the customer experience. So we own the customer at some level, but also a lot of the other stakeholders own the customer as well. And then in the end, no one owns the customer. It's the customer himself who decides who he wants to do business with.
That's interesting. How do you guys fit in?
Well, I just wanted to add something onto what you were just saying there. I think it becomes very interesting when you start thinking about what does this actually mean to a customer? What's the value proposition that these mobile solutions are offering to customers? We talk about it very much from a bank perspective a lot of the time, but as a customer, you want to complete your payment. And we know that customers are increasingly looking at all kinds of new entrants, from Google to PayPal. So they're willing to have a relationship with whoever makes it as simple as possible. So I really think it's important for all of us who are involved around the ecosystem to understand it's really about what the customer wants and giving them that simplicity.
Yeah, we were talking about this before. Firms like PayPal on top of the banking infrastructure.